I gave you, some of my reasons why I believe that we're in a domed Earth with a firmament. Here's another one, and this is really amazing. This was done by Nova, which is a PBS series, and I'm not going to play it because they will strike on this for sure. But essentially, what it's about is sprites and elves and how they have managed to get these shots of them, which is very interesting. So what, you guys have heard me say many times before that if there was a lower limit to the firmament, I've always speculated that it's probably at around 100 kilometers or around 60, 66 miles, something like that, okay? So lo and behold, when you start looking at this, they are studying these sprites and elves, and what they find is that, first of all, what they are is they are vertically discharging lightning, right? Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense that the lightning would be discharging upwards, especially under the current theory of how lightning works, right? Because supposedly the electrostatics is generated by the cold and warm air currents that are passing each other, causing a friction, causing electrostatics, and then of course it is naturally discharged to the Earth because the Earth is at ground potential. But what some of the pilots started reporting, and this documentary is fascinating, even though it's 99% BS on how they arrived at it. But what I found interesting is what they discovered of where they're hitting and how this all comes about. Other than that, it's a complete NASA propaganda piece. But so what they have found out that they have these vertical discharges that are going up from the clouds, which makes no sense whatsoever because there will only be a current flow when there is another conductor or another terminal, if you will, another pole that is of sufficient difference of potential to allow a discharge upwards, right? So in the standard globe Earth model, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But what's really interesting about this is that when these upward discharges occur, they are occurring at an altitude of about 100 kilometers, which, again, if you've heard me talk about my idea of this electric Earth, the Earth is the kind of the cathode and the firmament would be the anode. You have to have a charge potential. We know by Richard Feynman that there is a static potential charge of 100 volts per meter that's been measured all the way up to something like, I don't know, 50 miles or whatever it was, right? Which gives us a static potential of 5 million volts. And they're saying, obviously, that it's even higher than that with these sprites. So again, what's going on here? How are we having a current flow or an upward strike into allegedly empty space? And there isn't even enough at these altitudes, at 66 miles up, there isn't even enough atmosphere up there to cause any type of friction between air currents, right? It's just not there. And yet they flatten out at the top just like they were hitting something. Gee, I wonder what they're hitting. But they're doing that. So again, this is another one of those pieces of evidence that you really have to consider and set aside their BS explanation for it, because if you know even the most basic things about electricity, there has to be a static difference of potential or some sort of a cathode, anode, or terminals with a high enough potential difference that there will cause a current flow. Without that, forget about it. It isn't going to work. So what else do we have to indicate that there may be a firmament? Here's another thing that I have pointed out several times. The Star Trek-like invisible shield found thousands of miles above Earth. Well, first of all, thousands of miles, they're saying 7,200 miles. Now, I don't believe that that is the case at all. I think it's much, much closer, but you also have to understand that when it comes to scaling in the universe, because of the scales that we are given in general, we seem to be off by a factor of about 10 to the 120th, right? Okay, so, or up to that. So, but it's interesting. But they say stuff like, it's almost like these electrons are running into a glass wall in space, said Baker, the study's lead author, somewhat like the shields created by the force fields on Star Trek that were used to repel alien weapons. We are seeing an invisible shield blocking these electrons. It's an extremely puzzling phenomenon. Well, yes, I'm sure it is. because there's something up there, again, in my opinion. But again, there is so much evidence, I think, that we're building this preponderance of evidence once again, that this is really kind of leaning towards the idea that there is a firmament, no matter
Do you have
how
an
you want to
idea
look
of
at it.
what that firmament would be composed of? Are you saying it's like an electrical thing or actually a solid thing?
Well, I think that it's probably a solid thing, but it has a charge potential on it. And you know, I think that there's probably a few, and it also has optical characteristics as well. And I think that if the biblical account of, you know, where the sun and the moon are within the firmament, right, that's also something I believe that could be giving us our apparent position of the sun and moon. Because obviously they're very elusive, like a rainbow. You know, you go towards them and they seem to move away from you. You can't ever really track them down, right?
Right.
So I don't know, but I tend to think that yes, it is solid, just biblical account.